Hey there and welcome back to another Rise of the Guardians video. And today we'll be continuing with our series of videos where we talk through the backstories of various different characters of the Rise of the Guardians / the Guardians of Childhood franchise. And we lament what could have been if the film hadn't been a box office disappointment. What we could have seen in the form of further movies or maybe TV shows, sequels, prequels, spin-offs. One of the best franchises that Dreamworks has ever created, and it stumbles at the first hurdle. And then it's unceremoniously swept off to the side and it's never spoken of again. And that's a shame because it had a whole lot of potential. And honestly, all of the characters also had so much potential. And this is further highlighted by the release of all these Guardians of Childhood books throughout the 2010s that sort of set the stage for Rise of the Guardians. Stories that tell the origin of Pitch Black, who was a hero who fell to the dark side and became the worst villain the world had ever seen. Nicholas St. North, a notorious outlaw and bandit who spent his life chasing thrills and glory and riches until he discovered the wonder of invention and using those inventions to help others grow and thrive. Then there's Eas the Bunnymund, who's the last remnant of an old civilization that was massacred by Pitch Black and who now spends his time watching over the earth in his own way. And then we came to Toothiana, a half-human, half-flying fairy thingy who has an eternal rivalry and hatred of the Monkey King, her father's former best friend and previous slave owner, who ended up butchering her entire family. Oh, and now she flies around the world collecting teeth as they hold a person's memories. Each of these characters had really intriguing and interesting backstories that would have been great to base a story around. Each of them could have held its own as a standalone TV series, and they all would have been interesting and unique and crafted a fantastical world very much like we saw hints of in the film, and very much like we read about in the books. And so, since I'm a glutton for punishment, I will continue to make myself sad about what could have been by working my way through the backstories of the remaining characters and quietly weeping delicious salty tears as I lament what could have been. And of course, we've arrived at the second to last Guardian. We have arrived at Sandman, aka Sanderson Man Snoozy. Jesus, some of the names they pick out for these characters. Man Snoozy, come on, really? Anyway, for those of you who may have forgotten, Sandman is the Guardian of Dreams, who uses his magical sand to give dreams to the children of the world. And in the original film, he's probably the Guardian that gets the least development of all. And I get why. The film was already quite overcrowded with lots of characters that needed to have their own stories and arcs. Jack the protagonist, Santa the leader and the mentor. Bunny provides a rival for Jack to bounce off of. Pitch Black's the antagonist. And so that leaves a lot less time for other lesser characters, like Toothiana, and in this instance, Sandman. And I get why this approach was taken. There was likely the belief that there would be time to develop these characters in the future. After all, the majority of Dreamworks films get at least one sequel. And a lot of them also end up getting a bunch of spin-off TV shows on things like Netflix. How could they have known that they wouldn't get the chance to explore these other characters? And even if they had known, they ended up making the right choice in the end by doing this, because they needed to prioritize the characters that were the most important to the story, and Sandy just wasn't at that point in time. Hell, they even kill him off a third of the way through the film just to make things a bit more spicy, just to add some more emotional stakes. And then they bring him back to life right at the end to lay the smack down on Pitch Black once and for all and get some much needed revenge. Hell, of all the Guardians, it feels like Pitch is actually the most frightened of Sandy. And I think it actually helps his character feel more important, even though he's not in the film that much. Because he still feels like a big deal. He feels important enough for Pitch to specifically target him. And so when the film ends, you don't actually walk away from it thinking he was wasted. And instead, you want to see more from him. At least, that's what I thought. He still has that air of mystery about him. A mystique. And that could have been used to build a sequel or a prequel or whatever direction they wanted to go. He has insane amounts of narrative potential that were just waiting to be tapped. But I guess we know what happened there. And then we had a few years of nothing, whilst William Joyce came out with more of his books and unveiled more of the character's backstory. And here, we begin to delve into more of the cosmic side of things again, and honestly, it's one of my favourite backstories so far. So yeah, this is just going to be a bit of a summary. After all, if you want it word for word, you should support the author and buy the books. The majority of Sandman's backstory in pre-Rise of the Guardians arc is told through two books. The first is a picture book called Sandman, the story of Sanderson Man Snoozy. I still can't get over that name. Which is a story that tells the tale of how the Man in the Moon chose Sandy to be one of the Guardians. And the second is called The Sandman and the War of Dreams, and continues the story that's been told through the various different chapter books of the Guardians of Childhood series. and specifically picks up immediately where the Toothiana book leaves off, with Pitch and Catherine getting swept away by Mother Nature, and the Guardians being unsure of what to do next. And so, with that being said, let's start to dig a little through his backstory. Long before the chronological beginning of the books, and long before the film, Sandy was not the same little fellow flying around on a sand cloud giving dreams to kids. I mean, he was pretty similar, but not quite. In his earliest origin, he was a member of the League of Star Captains, people who fly around on shooting stars and grant wishes to people. So yeah, he was pretty similar, but not quite. His role was to grant wishes and to protect the wishing stars from evildoers who want to steal their untapped dreams. And yeah, there's a lot of cosmic hocus pocus in his story, but god damn it, I'm here for it. I love this kind of stuff, it adds so much to the story. But anyway, after a long time of just going about his business, he comes across a wild star who's unable to be ridden by any of the other captains. And obviously, since he's the main protagonist, he's able to eventually tame it and discovers the presence of a little girl called Emily Jane at its core. And for those of you who don't know, this little girl is actually Pitch's daughter. Anyway, they bond and they become close friends, and this is a friendship that endures throughout the series. But at this point in the story, Pitch turns up with a bone to pick with Sandy, and the two have an epic battle across the cosmos, which results in Sandy and the star plummeting to Earth, with only a wish from the man in the moon saving his life as the pair crash into the ocean, and Sandy sleeps for many years until he's awoken by the man in the moon, who calls him into action as a guardian to safeguard the dreams of children. And then this leads into the main events of the novel, where Sandy arrives to help save Catherine from Pitch and reunites with Mother Nature, aka Emily Jane, in order to help find them. He helps the Guardians and they all battle, yada yada yada. You know the drill here. And like usual, it seems like they finally defeated Pitch for good, only for it to be revealed that, oh no, that wasn't the case at all. Which of course then leads into the next book. But that's a story for another day, and another video. And so for now, we'll leave things here with a reminder that this epic backstory could still be a reality if Dreamworks takes another gamble on this franchise. Seriously, this story as a mini-series would be epic. But yeah, these have just been my opinions, and now I'd like to hear yours. What do you think of Sandy's backstory? You think it would have made for good TV, or maybe a film, or maybe not? I'm curious for your thoughts, so make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know.